Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you are able and join me for the reading of the invocation.
As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who've served our community, who are no longer with us, and whose work we must continue in their memory. Please be seated. So today we have with us, providing administrative support, Tanya Daniels to my right, the city clerk, and behind me, Julia Sipple, who is providing clerking admin services. So, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councillor Wall.
Present.
Councillor Antosky.
Here.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Sless.
Present.
Councillor Van Pelt.
Present. Yes.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Present.
Councillor McCreary.
Here.
Councillor Utley. Thank you. And Councillor Carpenter.
Present.
You have to ask about me.
Oh, sorry. Mayor Davis.
I'm present. Thank you very much, Tanya. So I'll now review briefly the rules of procedure. I'd like to remind members of council, staff, and our viewing public of the electronic participation policy for these hybrid meetings. For those staff and participants who are joining electronically, please keep your video and microphones off until requested to do so by the chair. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw continue to apply. Full corporate policy number 50 regarding electronic visual participation in meetings is available online on the city website for review. Further, please be aware that all rules of decorum as prescribed in the rules of procedure under Chapter 15 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code apply to all persons in the meeting room, including but not limited to the following. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting other than the materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audio-visual aids necessary in connection with any presentation made to council. All persons present in the meeting room shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak to any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So we'll now move on to declarations of the conflict of interest. Members of council, are there any conflicts of a pecuniary interest that anyone needs to declare regarding the item that appears on today's agenda? If so, please press the button to join the speaker's queue or raise your hand electronically. I'll start with Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. I do declare a conflict as I have a family relationship with one of the applicants.
All right. Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I declare a conflict on items 4.1 through 4.21, 5.1, and 6. And the reason being, 2 of the applicants are members of the same professional organization of which I am a director, and we've had a professional working relationship and will likely continue to do so. Additionally, 1 applicant and I are representatives of the same national brand and associated offices. As such, there may be a reasonable apprehension of bias.
All right, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do declare a conflict as I have a shared ownership in a property with a certified candidate in today's proceedings. Thank you. I will not be taking part in the vote.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. All right, so those that are here present, Councillor McCreary, Councillor Wall, we'll give you a minute. You'll have to sit in the audience. All right, so the first order of business today is the presentation from each of the candidates who have gone through the registration process. I'll remind members of council the following rules that were carried at the city council meeting on October 26th. Delegations are only permitted for certified candidates, and everyone has been certified. Candidates will be listed in a random speaking sequence order. Each candidate will be limited to 5 minutes of speaking time each, and there'll be no questions from members of council to candidates. And to all of the candidates, as I told you before the meeting, when you reach 30 seconds left in your presentation, which means 4 minutes, 30 seconds, you'll hear this. So that's to tell you you've got 30 seconds left. And then once you reach the 5-minute point, your microphone will be muted. After 11 presentations, we'll take a short recess and then return to hear from the remaining 10 presenters. I'd like to remind members of the voting process as established by resolution October 26, 2021 City Council meeting. Members will vote openly in a blind vote fashion. Members will vote for one candidate only. If on the first ballot, a candidate receives greater than 50% of the vote from the members of council present, they shall fill the vacancy. If on the first ballot, no candidate receives greater than 50% of the votes from the members of council present, then the candidate who received the fewest number of votes and the candidates with 0 votes will be removed from the subsequent voting list. Another vote will then be taken with the remaining candidates, and that process will continue until a candidate receives greater than 50% of the votes from the members of council present. Should a tie occur on the final 2 candidates, the clerk shall draw a name from a hat. Now, since the meeting where the rules were set, which October 26th, and in preparation for this meeting, a legal review of the blind vote and ballot terminology was conducted. And in accordance with section 433 of the Municipal Act, open voting, except as permitted in sections 233 and 238, no vote shall be taken by ballot or any other method of secret voting, and every vote so taken is of no effect. So the appointment of a councillor to fill a vacancy does not qualify for the exceptions that are in the Municipal Act. As a result, I'll need a member to move a procedural motion to rectify the blind vote and ballot language matter. So if I could have a mover. Yes. So,
Mr. Mayor, I'd ask staff to prepare something, but I don't see anything
Yeah,
here.
already.
So I'll move
Did you-
that we waive the rules to reconsider the voting process.
all right. And we have a seconder on that? Second by Councillor Sless. Okay, that'll take a 2/3 vote. So any discussion on that? I think it's pretty obvious why we have to do it. Madam Clerk, please take the vote on that.
Just waiting for Councillor Outley's response. The motion to adjust the procedures for today has carried on a recorded vote of 7-0, achieving the 2/3 required. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, Martin, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis.
All right, thank you, Tanya. Now, Tanya, can you please share for us the amendment or rule change that you think we should consider in reference to what I just said about the Municipal Act and secret ballots?
That was what you just voted on.
Yeah, the wording of that. Yeah. Yeah, you can share it, please. There it is. Okay, so that's what's recommended to us in view of that information obtained in the Municipal Act. If I can get a mover and a seconder then to get this on the floor. All right. So I'm told we have that in hand and that that change has been made. So is there anything else before we go into the presentations? Councillor Vanderstel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping to read that on screen as well, but I am considering an amendment seeking obviously a seconder that following the two rounds of 5-minute speaking opportunities that we go directly into the voting process rather than open debate or conversely debate in camera.
All right. So is there, do you have that, Madam Clerk? Do you have a seconder for that? Second by Councillor Utley. All right. So any discussion on that? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please take the vote on that.
Just a point of clarification. So this is a standalone motion. The previous motion was regarding the blind vote, and the word ballot exchange to vote already has been voted on and achieved the majority required. So this is a standalone motion for that no debate prior to the appointment vote be permitted, which would be in accordance with section 5.1 of your agenda.
All right, if we can take the vote on that, please. Sorry, Councillor Vanderstel, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, sorry, point over. I thought we were voting on motion to waive the rules and then to go ahead. So I must have misunderstood something there. I read this as an amendment to what I thought was on the floor. So I apologize for that.
I can have the mic. So sorry, it was a little bit confusing there, but we had it was the way it was done. There was a standalone motion that dealt with the ballot process, the secret balloting process. So we've had a resolution on the floor, and so that has been approved. So it's now an open ballot, and you put forward another, in essence, I guess a rule change or rule clarification, and that's been moved and seconded. So is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam, yeah, Councillor Van Tilburg.
I'd like to know again what we are changing and what the amendment is now after the discussion. I kind of lost track of what we were trying to do.
Right, fair enough. So what we have done is we have, I guess, cleaned up or clarified the rules, I can call it that, in reference to the actual balloting and voting that's now to be done open. The resolution that we just voted on did that, okay? And so we now have another resolution, and that's the wording there. It's
So an open vote.
Yes, that's.
So we're having an open vote where everybody here will be known for who they're voting for and what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And the person that originated this resolution to have this event is not a participant. And we're changing everything here after that fact. Just to be clear that the way everything was set up has been done by a councillor who can't even participate in the setup that he created.
Councillor Van Tilburg, you're personalizing the debate, all right? And you know from previous discussion we've had here that that's simply not permitted. It's unpermitted.
Is it not true that the councillor that created the motion?
Councillor Van Tilburg.
I just want clarification. I don't think it's fair to
Councillor Van
everybody.
Tilburg, I'm ruling that you're out of order. Would you? Thank you. All right. So what we have then is it is an open balloting process now. And so we have the second resolution on the floor. Madam Clerk, if you please put that up. So that was moved by Councillor Vanderstel, and it was seconded by Councillor Utley. So any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
The procedural motion regarding debate has carried on a recorded vote of 7-0, achieving the 2/3 required. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Vanderstel, Utley, Slash, Martin, and Toski Vento Borg.
Well, we'll now move right into the presentations after you had that demonstration of how we deal with procedure here. So we'll move right into the presentations then, and this has been selected at random by the clerk staff, the speaking order. And so our first candidate is Paul McDougall. And so Paul, if you could, yes, please come forward to the delegates table. So your microphone's live.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors, and thank you for having me. Before I begin today, I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation in acknowledging that we are all here today and every day on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Neutral peoples. Firstly, I'd like to thank my signatories, my family, and my friends for believing in me and inspiring me to lean into this opportunity. Secondly, I'd like to thank my fellow candidates. It takes a certain courage to put oneself here in this position, and I admire you all for participating in this process. So my name is Paul McDougall. I was born and raised in Toronto, and by a short stint through Hamilton, my wife and I purchased our first home here in Brantford 6 years ago. I'm a professional musician of 30 years and a music educator of 20. I've toured this vast country and others, sharing stage and studio with incredible artists and performers, studied under world-class musicians, and in turn completed the circle in educating hundreds of individuals on their journey through music as well. And while these professional experiences of teacher, student, leader, and teammate have all shaped me into the person before you, I've actually arrived here at this very moment through my public service here in Brantford. A public service of volitional work and volunteerism right here in our community that has enriched my life beyond measure and undoubtedly enriched the lives of many others. Public service has chosen me, and serving the residents of Ward 1 is the job that I am applying for here today. As co-chair and secretary of an incredible neighborhood association full of incredible people, together we help support, advocate for, and interconnect the residents of East Ward and Echo Place, not just to one another, but to their government and their city staff as well. And in navigating these avenues of working together with staff, councillors, volunteers, and residents, we have accomplished many great things these past 5 years and extraordinary things these past 2 years. It is a great honor to lead the charge of a thriving neighborhood association full of people who all love Brantford as much as I do. Mr. Mayor and councillors, today I wish to apply for this council vacancy and to serve and represent the residents of Ward 1. I am a kind, compassionate, and altruistic person. I care deeply for all my fellow human beings, and most certainly those of us struggling or marginalized. I am hardworking, dedicated, and meticulous in my work. I am a spark and a conduit. I am a negotiator and a cheerleader. I am an excellent listener with an open door personality, and my finger is on the pulse. And while I recognize that my evolution from community organizer to city councillor is a leap forward, please know that I am a highly qualified candidate for this appointment and eager to get to work. Mr. Mayor and councillors, there is an important choice in front of you here today. So if you are seeking a candidate who will serve the residents of Ward 1 with humility and hard work, I am that candidate. If you are seeking a candidate who will listen to and be guided by the voices of Ward 1, I am that candidate. And if you are seeking a candidate who will honorably serve and represent Brantford, I am that candidate. And while all the candidates participating here today are worthy of your time and consideration, please also consider this. I am not a status quo candidate. Rather, I am the candidate who will far exceed all expectations. Thank you again for your time and your consideration.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. So we'll move on to the second speaker, and that is someone who's coming in virtually, and that's Mr. Trammell. Do we have him?
Just switching over still.
Mr. Turmel, I see that there's no prompt for your microphone. If you could accept for the microphone. So your video is turned on, however, your microphone is not. There we go. If we could just have you unmute yourself.
Okay.
Great, and if you could put your microphone closer to your mouth, please.
Okay.
We can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, good. Starting now. All right. Well, I wrote a book called COVID Mortality Hyped 100-fold. And it explains how WHO said that the COVID 3.4% mortality rate was way, way bigger than the flu's 0.1% mortality rate. But they didn't tell you they were comparing different mortality rates, CFR to IFR. So they tricked you into believing that something that's way, way weaker than the flu is way, way more dangerous than the flu. So the book explains all the math behind how they tricked us with an apple-orange comparison. Number two, they also said that CDC, that transmission could be from symptomatic, asymptomatic people. And they said 50% of transmissions were from people without symptoms. But Wuhan did a test of 10 million people. And if symptomless people were transmitting, there would be clusters in their family and friend. Starting my video, that doesn't work. Family and friends. But Wuhan tested 10 million people and there were no asymptomatic spread. So we've been locking down and social distancing for nothing. They tricked us. Number three, CTV announced that there were 10,900 deaths, 10,750 in long-term care, and only 166 out of long-term care, 1 in 230,000, and then they took it down off their site. 4, the PCR test was set way too sensitive to detect 90% false positives. President of Tanzania submitted a sheep, a goat, and a papaya, and they all came back positive. 5, they changed the death certificate rules on March 24th, 2020, so that dying with COVID goes on the death certificate instead of struck by lightning, or instead of hit by a car, or instead of brain cancer, like the kid in Calgary. So the numbers have been hyped by changing the death certificate rules. And finally, HCQ was deterred. The guy in France saved 99.2% of his patients, and Bill Gates did a test, and he lost 25% of his patients. So how'd the guy in France lose under 1 and Bill Gates lose 25? He overdosed them by a factor of 10. So they really needed to discredit the alternatives to get their emergency use authorization, and we've been suckered by them. Now, the vaccines are dangerous. I wanted to tell you during the election, but unfortunately, all the reports on me just said John Turmel was there too. But the point is, mechanical engineering, if you put obstructions in your capillaries, you're going to get clots and spikes sticking out of your blood cells where it should be smooth cause clots. And that's why you've heard of so much myocarditis in the last year, especially with the kids who are exerting themselves and the athletes. Have you ever seen so many athletes die on TV before? So did you ever hear of myocarditis before vaccines? So vaccines are dangerous. They cause clots. And I tried to warn you, but I didn't get hurt. So the third part is this. We have to stop the vaccines of the kids because they're virtually immune. And the lockdowns, again, there's no reason for them except they're pulling off a hoax on us. So this is an opportunity to, now I got the site Smartest Man on Earth and smartestman.ca, which people think, how dare he? Well, guess what? I have the same education as Mr. Spock. Science and mathematics of gambling to figure out the winningest way to go. And it's been proven by the fact that I'm the only person, not one doctor in the planet, noticed they were tricked by comparing CFR to IFR. Think about that. Not one, unless they were too scared to speak up. And I'm not. But they tricked us off by a factor of 100. So anyway, that is basically my purpose here, is to say that I tried to get the message out during the election, but I couldn't. And I tried to get the message that the virus with mortality was a hoax by filing a federal court action. And that's what my book, COVID Mortality Hyped 100-Fold at Amazon, is all about. It's about how they tricked us. Now, if that doesn't prove that I'm a lot smarter than all the doctors in the world, and I also figured out that spikes cause clots, well, I'm here to warn you that I couldn't get the message out through the courts. I couldn't get the message out in the last election, but boy, making me counselor in Ward 1, because I'm going to stop the mandates. I'm going to stop the restrictions. I'm going to stop the vaccines of the kids. You know, older people want to take them, sure. But why would you want to take blood clots? All you got to do, the virus.
All right. Thanks very much, Mr. Trammell. Leave it at that. 4.3, the next third presenter is Jared LeMay. Jared, so you're here. Welcome, Jared.
How do I follow that? All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for your consideration for the position of Ward 1 Councillor for the City of Brantford. 5 minutes isn't a lot of time, so true to my nature, I'll get straight to the point. For a lot of people here today, Brantford's been their home since birth. They were born in Brantford, grew up in Brantford. However, I am not one of those people. I was born in the Ottawa Valley and I've moved across Ontario as I grew up. When the opportunity presented itself to make one final move to settle down, place my roots for my new family and growing family, I deliberately chose Brantford to raise my family in, and it would be my honor to represent Ward 1. I saw a small city much like the one I grew up in and saw the happy memories and memorable moments from my youth. I saw all of the good times I had as a child and how my children would be able to grow up with the same advantages I had and enjoyed. But Brantford now is at a crossroads. It has the opportunity for considerable growth in the future, which is a double-edged sword. Do it right and the city will flourish while maintaining its unmistakable charm. Do it wrong and it will become a husk of its former self, losing its charm, uniqueness, and becoming just another big city surrounded by Toronto or surrounding Toronto. My experience in the municipal sector, not just for my current job, but my entire life, puts me in a unique position to help this city and this council make difficult choices needed to navigate quick and sustained growth. Since my birth, my father's been a fixture in the municipal sector. A story my parents often tell about me when I was a baby was just before my father went to a Brockville City Council meeting, I bit his nose. During that meeting, he proceeded to bleed profusely. I assure you, I harbor no ill intentions for city councils despite my past actions, however they look. From there, we moved to the city of Belleville, where he was superintendent of public works. He moved from there to Bayham Township and finally Clearview Township, where he retired. So throughout all of his travel and experience, I listened, I learned, and I picked up knowledge of municipalities, councils, and their goings on. This municipal background led me to my current job with the Ontario Good Roads Association, a not-for-profit that represents the interests of Ontario's municipalities and First Nation members in infrastructure and transportation, with which I'm sure you're all very familiar, having been members. Writing for the quarterly magazine, creating advertisements for our educational offerings, advocacy efforts, which allowed me to travel to Queen's Park every year and discuss topical issues with many MPPs, including Brantford's own Will Boma, and finally co-hosting the Good Roads podcast with our manager of public policy and government relations. All of these opportunities, they've allowed me to peer behind the curtain of not only the political aspect of municipalities, but to reinforce my education of the hands-on and day-to-day works of public works, parks and rec, and the myriad of other divisions that support municipalities. The Good Roads podcast, of which I spoke earlier, is something I'm particularly proud of. It is my baby and something I built from the ground up. My co-host Thomas Barakat and we interview interesting and influential people whose ideas affect the municipal sphere. We've had guests such as City of Pickering's Manager of Public Works and former OGRA President Rob Burley discussing how his employees would handle the COVID epidemic. We've also had discussed municipal sustainability with former Mayor of Toronto, David Miller, and most recently, government misspending with Charles Marone, the founder and president of Strong Towns, an organization which advocates for development of dense towns and restructuring of suburbia in the United States. A lot of people like to give the impression that they have all of the answers. I disagree with that. I tend to disagree with that. Nobody has all of the answers, and I'm no exception. The difference with me, though, is that I have the experience and the relationships to not only get answers, but the right answers. And at this time in my life, I feel it's time to utilize my advantages to help Brantford move forward into sustainable growth while keeping the charm and appeal I loved when I brought my family here to grow. I'm uniquely positioned to jump into this interim role with relative ease. I already know and understand complex issues facing municipalities such as joint and several liability, Vision Zero, minimum maintenance standards, and so on. And that is why I'm the ideal choice today. Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." It would be an honor for me to utilize my knowledge and skills to give back to a community that has welcomed myself and my family. Thank you for your time and consideration, everybody. I was going to leave this open for questions, but since we're not doing that, I just want to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jared. The next candidate is Rose Sicoli. Rose, if you please come up.
Good morning, councillors, Mayor Davis and staff. My name is Rose Sicoli, and if you'll have me, I would like to serve alongside you as councillor for Ward 1. When I was a young child, the playground near my house was in much need of improvement. With some help from my mother, I remember writing a letter about it to my city councillor. I vividly remember watching proudly as my city councillor read this letter on TV at a city council meeting. And when the new park was completed the following summer, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. Even at that young age, I knew that I wanted to give that feeling to another young girl with a small idea that had such a huge impact on the neighborhood. West Brant is my home. It's where I live, where my daughters go to school. It's where my children played in the parks and where I walk my dog. This is my why. Now let's get into why I'm asking for your vote today. What do I bring to the table? I bring a tremendous amount of experience in community involvement, and I have been consistently, actively involved in the city of Brantford for the last decade. It began in 2012 with a seat on the Multi-Use Trails and Bikeways Advisory Committee. Next was the Tourism Advisory Committee, then the Southwest Sports Complex Task Force. I was part of the working group on the Mayor's Economic Recovery Task Force, and currently I'm serving on the Brownfields Community Advisory Committee. I've served on the board of directors for the Brantford Regional Real Estate Association since 2014, and I was successfully elected as president and spokesperson for the association in 2019 and 2020. 4 years were spent representing over 78,000 realtors across Ontario with advocacy work while sitting on the Government Relations Committee for the Ontario Real Estate Association. Along with being a part-time student at Wilfrid Laurier University, my training includes governance training, media training, leadership training, and I have real-life experience to reinforce all of it. I've played an active role in attending roundtable discussions with our MP and our MPP about how we can work together to bring more affordable and attainable housing to Brantford. I've spearheaded an action plan that will contribute over $50,000 into an affordable housing development right here in Brantford. There have been several meetings with City of Brantford staff to discuss ways to bring attention to its already established programs, including our Be Home program and programs that encourage landlords to help us alleviate the wait list for affordable housing. A few years ago on International Women's Day, I had the absolute privilege of representing the Ontario Real Estate Association at a roundtable discussion with several ministers and provincial stakeholders to explore how to better encourage our next generation of women to enter into and thrive as political and community leaders. One of the best ways we can encourage women to excel in today's economy is to enter the skilled trades, as 1 in 5 jobs will be in skilled trades by the year 2025. I've always taken an active role in encouraging the realtor community to support local charities we all know, such as Nova Vita, the Brantford Food Bank, Habitat for Humanity, Brantford Blessing Center, just to name a few. The Real Estate Association named me Volunteer of the Year in 2019. And in the same year, I was the recipient of a fellowship award given by the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation. I've never shied away from speaking up to support this council, knowing it was for the greater good of the community. To conclude, I bring a voice to council that is very representative of our city and Ward 1. I bring youth, although my children might not agree with that. I bring a businesswoman's and a mother's perspective with much public sector experience to draw from. I bring gender balance and diversity of thought to the decision-making table. I am consistent, I am active, and I am passionate about the issues that drive Brantford and finding creative solutions to them. I have been right here working alongside all of you for years. And now today, I am humbly asking for you to vote for me, Rose Sicoli, as Brantford's next councillor for Ward 1. And I want to be respectful of the time allowances here today, but I do come prepared with a 30, 60, and 90-day plan for my time on council that I'm eager to implement. And I thank you very much for your consideration today.
Thank you, Rose, especially for keeping it right on the dot at 5 minutes. So we'll now move on to the 5th presenter. And the next candidate is James Ray.
Good morning, Mayor Davis, council, and fellow candidates. I would like to start by thanking you for this opportunity to speak as a candidate for the position of Ward 1 councillor. I'm a lifelong resident of West Brant and most recently of Ward 1. I have been involved in this community for many years. As a longtime entrepreneur, having owned and operated Ray's Flowers for over 40 years. As a local businessman, it gave me an opportunity to serve this community, both in business and being a member of many service clubs, groups, and committees, including Rotary Club, Brantford Chamber of Commerce, and the BGH Foundation, to name a few. Not having initially considered myself in this role as a member for council, most certainly, I turned to Google for some inspiration. I came across an article posted on the Municipal World website. The title of the article was 7 Vital Qualities to Look For in Your Local Leader by Christina Benti, published in Leadership magazine. As I read the article, I found myself agreeing with their views as to what is key to being a successful council member, and I believe I possess those qualities that would make me a good candidate for this position. I would like to share some of these qualities highlighted in this article and how my experience and values relate to them. Relationship builder. In order to be successful in business, I developed the ability to build both personal and business relationships within the community. A team player. Number 2, my role in Rotary made me aware of the importance of being a team player, participating in community projects, realizing that a team was needed to accomplish our goal to give back to the community. Emotionally mature. Number 3, in my many years of experience in customer service, there were many instances where I was required to follow through with the wishes of views of others, even if they conflicted with my own. However, in the end, I know it was essential to listen to the needs and wishes of others in order to satisfy the cause. Number 4, approachable. Being approachable in my customer service experience was about being genuinely interested, showing my willingness to give of my time and to meet with the needs of others. I felt this built a good sense of trust with my clients and essentially making it easier to communicate with them. Number 5, critical thinker. A critical thinker to me is someone who makes informed decisions and can recognize the impact of that decision in both the short and long term. Prepared, number 6. I have had to stay informed and up to date in order to stay relevant, current in business. I feel it is important to do your homework in order to provide effective input and feedback. Number 7, financial acumen. Whether it be your personal life or as a member of council, it is important to have knowledge of the basic accounting principles in order to make sound financial decisions, which can have a positive or negative impact. It is my belief, in order to be that effective counselor in this community, it is not only representing your ward well, however, it is also about listening and making decisions together that are the best interest of the community at large. Quite simply, the reason why I put my name forth as a vacancy in this ward is because I want to give back to the community as it has given to me. I feel it would be an honor and a privilege to represent the people of this community in hopes that I can make a positive impact in some way. I would like to thank you today, once again, for your time and consideration, and want you to know that I appreciate the difficult decision you will need to make in selecting your fellow counselor. My sincerest thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ray. And again, right on the dot, 5 minutes. Thanks very much. So our next candidate, this is candidate number 6, is Andy Straisfield. And Andy's present. So if you please come forward, Andy.
Your Worship, Mayor Davis, honorable members of the council, and for those of you here and those of you remotely, I thank you very much for the privilege to speak with you today. Resumes and CVs only give you an expression of what I've done in the past. Hopefully my words today will share my vision for the future and offer you a glimpse into a desire to serve. My desire to continue a legacy that Ward 1 voted for 3 years ago with a resounding voice. President Obama once said, when you look out for one another, when we take care of each other, when we root for one another's successes, when we strive to do better and be better than the generation before us and try to build something better for generations to come. That's why we do what we do. That's the whole point of public service. In times of great frustrations that we are now, with frustrations levels growing at our political processes, these times of frustration lead to opportunities. Opportunities that will quickly pass if we don't make the right decisions and seize the moments now. My name is Andy Straisfield, and I'm running for Ward 1 Council position vacated by Councillor Rick Weaver. And I want to be perfectly clear. If appointed to this position, I intend to continue Rick Weaver's agenda and vision. This is his councillorship, bestowed to him by the will of the people. And I would be truly privileged to serve in his stead as a caretaker until such time that he returns healthy and happy to these hallowed chambers. 2022's election will undoubtedly usher change, a great transformation. That change will require innovation, determination, and courage. In 2022, we will see people from cross trades and life experiences, people of different ages and walks of life, people who feel compelled to run, and be that transformation. To my fellow candidates remotely and here, I wish and I ask that you do run, and I implore you to run, and may you have a successful start at your legacy as being a Brantford councillor. I look forward to seeing a new generation of candidates and what they can bring forward, as I'm only running today without desire for re-election. My hope is to fulfill Rick Weaver's social agenda, to work with council as a consensus builder and a diplomat, and support Rick's mission of attaining the living wage and advocate for the most vulnerable citizens. If we return back to the words of Barack Obama and we talk about public service, we talk about the injection of heart and soul to what is lacking in our society. We talk about new and fresh, untested ideas that must be placed in the laboratory of society and tested to its maximum efficiency. Until Election Day 2022, we must not overlook the potential or the possibilities, for these are the crucial moments in history, moments that will depend on the decisions we make. We will either define our future successes or will result in our collective failure. We must choose wisely and we must govern fairly. We must put people first and recognize that they are here to serve, we are here to serve, and the entire constituency in a fair and just and equitable manner. We must act now to improve the lives of our citizens by supporting local businesses and creating jobs. This is critical for our sustainability and the prosperity of our community. Every community faces challenges, and ours is no different, but the answers are right in front of us. We just need to open our eyes and see the promise that exists within our people. We need to open our ears and really listen to the words of the citizenry. We must open our hearts to the passions of this community. Throughout great history of ours, the Canadian people have confronted challenges with resilience and benevolence. I know that any challenge we face today, we can solve with fortitude and unity born from these inspired ideas of those who have come before us. We can stand up for what is just, we can do what is right, and we can leave behind a legacy that we can be proud of. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you very much, Andy. We'll now move on to the seventh speaker, who I believe is present here, Gino Caputo.
Well, good morning, Mayor Davis, members of council. I want to thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to be here today to discuss why I want to be councilman for Ward 1. I'm going to talk to you today and give you a brief history of my employment, as well as my community involvement, my family, and why I would be the right choice for a councilman of Ward 1. I'm currently the store manager for Farm Boy. I've been with Farm Boy for the past 8 years. I started in London, Ontario. I opened 3 stores. I moved on to Cambridge, Brantford. I've moved on to Hamilton and Burlington. And over those years, I've built a set of teams, developed individuals for growth, and have been an integral part of the communities that I've been involved in. But the one that always stays close to my heart is the city that I live in here in Brantford. I have over 30 years of managerial experience. My business acumen is strong. I bring a financial skill set that is going to be an assistance to everyone here on council. I've been managing operations and businesses that range anywhere from $13 million to $65 million per year. My strength has always been about building teams, developing, and bringing people along. And I hope to be able to do that here as well. From a community involvement, I am a member of Central Baptist Church. I'm also a youth leader for grade 5 and 6 boys, where we meet on Wednesday nights for 40 weeks a year. And I'm a mentor to those individuals. It's a wonderful opportunity to give to those kids and see them grow and watch them as I see them get older in their life. I'm also a secretary on the finance committee of our church, as well as for CBA, the academy, that is the school that's located there. I've been entrusted by members to be able to make the right decisions for everyone, not only for the church and for the school. So I take that consideration very heavily. I'm also a member of Rotary Club of Brantford Sunrise. I'm currently on the auction committee and sponsorship committee. Being around really good people and working as a team has been the success of Rotary. Our last auction raised over $40,000, which we donated to the children's ward of the Brantford General Hospital. I am here today to be able to discuss with you folks the honor and the privilege it would be not only to work alongside you, but to be a voice for the people of Ward 1. Being a part of this growing city with a tremendous upside is absolutely something I want to be a part of. The great thing that Brantford has done and you people have done over the past few years is not only has this city grown, but you've been able to maintain the heritage of what was so important to everything going on here today. I drive home every night from Burlington, Ontario, and I drive through the downtown core and simply am amazed at the transformation and revitalization of what downtown looks like today, what it's going to look like in the future. That shows that Brantford is moving forward. That is something I want to be a part of. Making sound decisions for the greater good of community is something I've always done in my professional career because it's the decisions that I have to make in order to keep businesses prosperous and to grow individuals in that. In closing, I moved to Brantford with my family in 2011. My sons looked at me when they were just grade school kids in elementary at the time. They said, "Dad, do we have to move?" And I said, "Son, this is where I want to be and where we need to be." And I think when the moving truck moves in, I said, "Boys, don't worry about it. You're going to see a bunch of kids in our neighborhood and you're going to be able to realize that it was the right thing." So needless to say, as soon as that truck moved in, family over to our right had two boys the same age as my sons. To the left, 1 year older and 1 year younger. I looked at their faces. They smiled. My wife smiled. I knew I was home. I love Brantford. I want to be a part of this community. And I thank you for listening to me today.
Thanks very much, Jim. So our next candidate is Rebecca Mosco. Morning, Rebecca.
Be on. There we go. Esteemed council members, welcome guests. I'm here to tell you why I should be considered for city council. I want to explain to you the experiences that have brought me to where I am today, and I would like to share with you how that has molded me into a hardworking and thoughtful candidate ready to do their part in making Brantford a healthy, happy, successful community. I grew up in a very political family. My grandfather was a city councilor in Toronto for more than 30 years, and my mother was a school trustee. I remember being very young, sleeping over at my grandparents' house, and watching my grandfather read through these absolutely massive council agendas late into the night. At the time, I was too young to understand the importance of what I was seeing, and it puzzled me. Who would want to do such work? But as I grew older, I began to understand. While the workload was huge, my grandfather was someone who truly cared about his constituents and wanted to ensure he was as prepared to do his duty as he possibly could be. Throughout the years, I've internalized these values, let them shape me, and realized that I wish to emulate them as much as I possibly can. This is the dedication that I want to bring to my role if you select me for the seat on the council. To deserve the trust of my community and to put in the hours, the work, and the dedication that is needed to give that community every chance to flourish. Brantford isn't Toronto with its 100,000 constituent wards, and that suits me personally. I want my time on council to truly impact individuals. And when I moved to Brantford over a year ago with my spouse, I learned all about the wonderful community Brantford can be. When the council vacancy arose, I knew it could be a great opportunity for me to serve the Ward 1 population. And I intend to put myself forward as a leader and as a member of the team, both now and in the future, in service to my new home. I bring more than just gumption to the table. I believe my life experiences and my education prepare me excellently for the role as city council. I have an education focusing on a scientific background and an advanced diploma in chemical engineering technology, my extensive experience in service to the public, and my own personal awareness of disability rights, women's rights, and LGBTQ rights. I've also participated in the Brantford Equal Grounds Community Gardens program and am newly appointed to the Brantford Accessibility Advisory Committee. I have the skills needed to tackle the challenges of tomorrow and a ready understanding of the challenges facing us today. This brings me to my goals. My aim on City Council will first and foremost be to listen to the people of Ward 1 and assist them both as individuals and as a community, to find out what's important to them and to find solutions for them going forward. More specifically, I do have agenda items: accessibility and programming for disabled and elderly people, featuring first among these. With my own family growing older and seeing the impact of COVID on these populations firsthand, I consider this a priority. Even here at City Hall, the accessible parking spot outside does not have a curb cut, so there's improvements to be made everywhere. Close behind are the housing crisis and poverty facing so many people. I consider affordable housing a human right and will explore as many opportunities as possible to add more to the city. A final priority is ensuring the dignity and autonomy of those with drug addictions and providing resources to those who are struggling. It's a big list, and anyone pretending that dealing with it would be easy is trying to sell you a bill of goods. What I can tell you is that I believe in this town, that it's made up of good people, hardworking people who look out for one another, and that as a community, we can make real progress in addressing these issues. If selected, I'll be happy to lead from the front. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. So our next candidate is Tiffany Nelson, who will be coming in virtually through Zoom. Morning, Tiffany.
Morning. Councilors, mayor, city staff, constituents, fellow applicants, friends. We gather here today on the traditional lands of our ancestors. Next slide. This is a traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Tutelo, the Huron-Wyandot, and other neutral nations. Brantford is situated on the Haldimand Tract, a royal decree of 1784 to the Mohawk Nation and such others of the Six Nations, for them and their posterity to enjoy forever. Next slide. Industry and perseverance, from the town of Brantford to the city of Brantford, from the two-row to the bow, the great law of peace is extended in friendship. Next slide. The two-row wampum is an agreement of mutual respect, peace between the Haudenosaunee and newcomers. Our friendship needs to be surrounded with good intentions, good minds, and good relations. Next slide. The Hiawatha Belt, the great law of peace. The rope connects the 5 nations to the tree of peace. This rope extends outwards from the 5 nations. This rope is for anyone lost can find their way back to the tree of peace. This rope unites us together. Next slide. The Friendship Belt, the British and Haudenosaunee covenant chain. This rope has been extended in friendship. It represents clear and honest communication, an open path to peace that connects us. Next slide. So what can I offer? I have a demonstrated history of community engagement. I've rendered up committees and conferences, I've done research, and I've led on panels. I have an in-depth knowledge and application of systems theory. Next slide. When I was in Toronto as a youth mental health outreach worker, I took some of the most disenfranchised individuals and we came together. We created a committee, we created a council, and we created a 2-day conference that was attended by municipal, provincial, and federal members. Next slide. With working with the youth, I've also saw one of the major issues they were facing was the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Through sex trade or intravenous drug use, many youth succumb to HIV/AIDS. I partnered with University of Toronto, we did some research together, and we helped apply it to the community. Next slide. I've also been a young leader panel member twice for the Canadian Centre for Diversity because I strongly believe in a world without stigma. As you can see, I was a panelist and the discussion was the high cost of hate. Next slide. I've been a family service worker for Native Service Branch. I was on reserve, and one of the hardest questions I ever had to answer, and it took me a long time, was what is the difference between a Crown ward and a ward of the Crown? And from this, I understand the astronomical depths that these issues are being forced on a municipality due to other orders of government. History, terms, legislation has been an ongoing issue. Respect and appreciation for cultural appropriateness and progress is needed and can be obtained. Next slide. I'm an educated individual. You can see from my resume, I hold 2 degrees from the University of Waterloo and a bunch of other certificates, diplomas, licenses. I'm a nerd. I'm community focused. I have an extraordinary proficiency in cultural awareness. I have a strong proficiency in conflict resolution. I have a strong belief in teamwork. I have innovative perspectives, and I'm highly adaptable. And I would love to be your Ward 1 counselor. Yahweh.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. So we'll now move on to the 10th candidate, who is Linda Hunt. And I believe Linda's will be joining us virtually. There you are. Good morning, Linda.
Morning. Morning, Mayor, councilors, and my fellow candidates. I bring to council dynamic, experienced leadership and would be honored to serve the Ward 1 constituents as well as the city of Brantford. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight 3 areas of my time here in Brantford. My husband, Greg, and I have been lifelong residents of Brantford, been married for 32 years and have raised both of our adult children here. As a business owner, next slide, please. My husband and I have operated Grelin Apparel Graphics for 32 years. We are located right behind the Linden Park Mall. We are local employers, we are commercial taxpayers, and we are community supporters. In addition, I run Accessibility Solutions. I am the CEO and an award-winning accessibility consultant. Next slide, please. I am also an executive professional. I spent a number of years as executive director of a national health charity. And what that brings to council is my experience in managing multi-million-dollar budgets, managing a number of departments and offices across the country. As a business consultant and trainer, I have helped several hundred small businesses get their start in business. I've worked in economic development for Norfolk County, for Hamilton, for Waterloo, Wellington, and for the city of Guelph. I spent 13 years working for the Superior Court of Justice. All of this brings my level of executive expertise to the table. Next slide, please. I have spent 35 years involved in the Brantford community. I've sat on 25 local boards and committees and have chaired at least 10 of them. I would like to highlight some of my volunteer experience. I was the chair of the Brantford Accessibility Advisory Committee for over 5 years. I chaired the Citizens Review Committee that reviewed the ward boundary structures in advance of the 2014 election. Spent time as chair of the Ontario Trillium Foundation Grant Review Team. I sat on the Community Engagement Committee for the Brant Community Healthcare System. I sat on the Community Engagement Committee for the Local Health Integration Network. Spent over 10 years, both locally, provincially, and federally with the MS Society of Canada. Took leadership roles with Enterprise Brant and also leadership roles with the Chamber of Commerce. I am also a 10-year member of the Neighborhood Alliance of Brant and spent about 15 years with the Brandland Neighborhood Association and currently sit as secretary of the Briar Park Neighborhood Association. I am a strong relationship builder and have been very proud of my community involvement. Next slide, please. What I bring to council is I would be committed to the constituents of Ward 1, but also to the constituents of the city of Brantford. I am a governance professional. I am very experienced in governance, leadership, and strategic planning. And I bring equity, diversity, and inclusion to council. City of Brantford has a commitment to diversity, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and I would be glad to be a part of that. In closing, I would like to just state that I thank you for the opportunity to present to you this morning. I'm proud of the work that I've done over the past 35 years. My professional experience in community development has always been about improving the lives of others. I hope I have demonstrated my ongoing commitment to our community and that I have earned your support as a candidate for Ward 1. I envision an open, inclusive, barrier-free city where all residents have the opportunity to be active and engaged members of their community. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I welcome the opportunity to serve the constituents of Ward 1 as their councillor.
Thank you very much, Linda. All right, we'll move on to the 11th candidate, Sandra Bigger, who is present. Sandra, should you please come forward?
Mr. Mayor, city councilors, fellow candidates, city staff. It's my pleasure to offer myself in community service as the councillor for Ward 1. I was born and raised in Brantford and have been here most of my life. I attended Dufferin School, and after Dufferin School went on to attend BCI. And I am one of Mohawk College's success stories. I went into a program at Mohawk College in the engineering field and attained a job right after graduation and worked in the field for 25 to 30 years. It's been a long and interesting ride. And you may say to yourself, why me? Why should this person be coming forward at this point in time in their life? There are many reasons why I'm coming forward. I was raised in and had my youth and teenage years in Ward 1, which became Ward 2. My young adulthood was spent in Wards 2 and 3. My middle age was spent in Wards 3 and 4. And my retirement is spent in Ward 5. I have literally lived in every single ward in the city of Brantford. And the thing I notice about all of these wards is that the citizens are vital, they're interested, and they are proud to be a part of the city of Brantford. My work experience included working for a company called Fruhoff, in which I had to commute to Toronto every day to work in this particular field. But I was unique in as much as I was the only woman in Canada that was doing what I was doing. And what was I doing? I was designing tanker trailers, the big transport trucks that you see running down the road. I was designing these particular vehicles. I started as a junior drafter, working on the board, working hard, and eventually ended my career as high as I could go without being a professional engineer. I became a senior checker, which was as much as I could extend myself in that particular career. The company unfortunately folded, but not before I had an opportunity to have international experience. I spent 6 months working in Jakarta, Indonesia, helping the people in Indonesia to learn how to build the units that we were producing in Canada. From there, I went on to many different engineering roles, including designing rail cars, hydro generation installations, electrical components for automotive, many different forms of engineering. It's been an interesting ride. During this time, I also spent 20 years working in the elections. I worked in the federal election, the provincial election, as well as in the municipal elections. And I'm always happiest on election day. That to me should be a holiday. When we get the opportunity to put our own voices to government, it is a very special day. I learned how the elections work. I learned all the different roles that are in the election preparation, and it has given me a great idea of how government functions. It's been an interesting ride, and what I bring to this table is energy, experience, perspective, and vitality. I think Brantford, I've always said this for many years, I've said Brantford has the best of all worlds. We are 1 hour from Toronto, 1 hour from Niagara, 1 hour from Kitchener-Waterloo, 1 hour from all the beaches that you could ever want along the shores of the lake. What more could we want? We have all of the benefits, but none of the problems that go with the big city. We don't have the crime rate, hopefully, that they have in Toronto. We still are a great community to raise children in. In closing, I would like to say, why me? Why not me? I'm committed, I'm interested, I'm involved in this community. And as many of you know, I have made my preparation for this role by coming to these meetings. I've spoken with every one of the councillors, and I feel like I could bring some valuable insight into this committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Well, we're now going to take a 10-minute recess before we move on to the 12th candidate. It's now about 10:15, so we'll reconvene at 10:25. Thank you. We'll now reconvene and we'll move on to the 12th candidate. Mr. Littell, would you please come forward?
Glasses on. Good morning, Mayor Davis, councilors, staff, fellow candidates. My name is Mark Littell and I'm seeking the position of Ward 1 councilor. I would like to recognize the contribution and dedication of Councillor Rick Weaver and wish him all the best. It is unfortunate that we have to be here today to fill Rick's vacant seat. He was a true leader. I would also like to recognize the hard work and dedication of Councillor Vanderstelt in carrying the full weight of serving the constituents. Council made the right decision in choosing not to fill this position by election. I believe to have done so would have unreasonably burdened the taxpayer and unfairly burdened Councillor Vanderstelt. You have a great responsibility as you stand in for the electors of the First Ward. Your decision is not an easy one, and you will be criticized for whatever choice you make at the conclusion of today's meeting. I believe the successful candidate should demonstrate the following qualities. Number one, lifelong commitment to the community. Number two, demonstrated knowledge and commitment to Ward 1. Number three, leadership and team skills. And number four, experience. If you believe, as I do, that the successful candidate must have demonstrated a commitment to the community, then you have many good choices today. The vast majority of candidates today have proven varying degrees of commitment. Half have run in previous elections. I have in the past been involved with many community organizations like Habitat for Humanity, Christmas Baskets, Food Bank, and Rotary. City Council appointed me to both the Airport Commission and the Police Services Board. I am proud to serve my community and grateful for the faith Council has bestowed upon me. If you believe, as I do, that the successful candidate should have demonstrated a commitment to the First Ward, then the choices before you are fewer. Like both Ward 1 councilors, I am a leader and team player. I chair the Police Services Board. I chair the Airport Commission. I have led many organized community organizations. During my time on council, I led significant initiatives which were successful by involving members of council. I believe my leadership skills are unmatched by other candidates. If you believe, as I do, that experience is of paramount importance in selecting the successful candidate, then your choices are also fewer. 3 candidates before you today have prior council experience. Experience is important as the successful candidate takes office in the midst of a number of significant files. Budget deliberations will be the first order of business. Experience in budget deliberations cannot be overstated. I have that experience. Assuming a seat on the Finance Committee will be important. I have that experience. Looking after the concerns of constituents is important. I have that experience. Committee work is important. I have that experience. Dealing with difficult situations is important. Councillors have come in for some very harsh criticism over the last year or two, personal attacks and threats this past year. Not every candidate before you today will be able to cope with that kind of pressure. So let me recap, Mayor and members of council. I have a commitment to the community demonstrated by 30 years of community involvement. I have a commitment to the First Ward demonstrated by my service to residents as their former ward councillor. I've demonstrated leadership and team play during my time as a Ward 1 councillor, as well as before and after. Lastly, of all the candidates before you today, my experience is the most extensive. I am grateful to council for their appointments to Police Services Board and the Airport Commission, which allows me to serve the community in a meaningful way. I am hopeful that you will once again appoint me, this time to succeed Councillor Rick Weaver. I assure you that I am up to the job and ready to go to work. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mark. We'll now move to the 13th candidate, Mario Lasenti. Morning, Mario.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Davis and councilors. First of all, I'd like to wish Rick Weaver a speedy recovery and wish him and Mia all the best in their future endeavors. I've lived in Brantford all my life. 32 years, I've had the pleasure to live in Ward 1. I consider West Brant the diamond in the rough with miles of Grand River shoreline, including the transformation of the old TH&B rail lines in our current Dobney Trail system. We must protect this trail system which surrounds Dobney Creek and the wildlife habitat that it sustains. I've had the honor to be a candidate in the 2018 election for Ward 1. Although it was my first attempt, I had the pleasure to meet so many people on my door-to-door campaign endeavors. They shared many concerns and offered some great suggestions on how to make our community a better place to live. Sadly, I continually heard the term old versus new West Brant. And they felt this way because their neighborhood concerns were neglected while other areas of the ward seemed to get the attention. And I found that term upsetting because I always considered there was only one West Brant, and I made it a personal challenge if elected to rectify the negative image and make everyone inclusive. As West Brant continues to exponentially grow, considering new home growth, we need to take a serious look at completing the BSAR extension. To develop a multitude of new homes without a tangible exit route for the thousands of residents is incomprehensible. It's the cart before the horse. Traffic congestion is at a monumental proportion with no immediate solutions. This new route must be the least disruptive of animal habitat and land preservation and the most efficient route to get people in and out of the city on their daily commutes. It is imperative that it must be cognizant and respectful, not disrupting residential homes, memorial parks, or loved ones' intimate locations. Road safety and traffic congestion has always been my personal priority. I'm deeply concerned that the new home development in West Brant has created a monumental traffic gridlock for the many residents that live there and throughout the city. Affordable housing crisis has reached a serious proportion, leaving many families that are struggling to maintain a living being forced into the homeless condition. Housing demand has forced rent increases to skyrocket to the point that hardworking families can no longer maintain a balanced of affordable standard of living. Residents do not have the luxury of waiting 10 years to meet the Housing Task Force plan of achieving 35% of the 1,415 households currently on the wait list. The numbers will only increase with inflationary demands, not diminish. This only scrapes the surface of the more underlying serious issues contributing to the crisis, such as drug and alcohol abuse, which adds costly burdens on our paramedic, fire, safety, to hospitals. As a community, we must determine a viable short-term plan to alleviate this problem. In closing, I'm deeply compassionate for Ward 1 and an advocate for green space preservation, including wildlife conservation. We must protect West Brant waterways and forests from new development destruction for future generations to come so that they can experience the joy and pleasure of growing up in a great neighborhood. Land asset reallocation must be analyzed with comprehensive scrutiny in conjunction with public consultation. We must strive to finalize the BSAI route for West Brant through a collaborative public consultation partnership. The lack of affordable housing has reached a daunting proportion, which is only going to get worse with inflationary increases. And we must take a serious look at the near future implications for the municipality and its residents that are affected. It's time to take a serious look at our deteriorated downtown and develop a tangible plan to breathe vibrant life back into the downtown that I knew growing up as a child. The frivolous spending of wasted tax dollars must be controlled. Resources through fiscally responsible council decisions must be scrutinized to the last penny. This can only happen through transparent, honest, open public consultation. The only way to succeed is a team approach, making cost-efficient, common sense decisions for the benefit of our city. No one person can do it alone. And together, let's restore Brantford back to the growing, vibrant city that I once knew growing up as a child. I thank you, Mayor Davis, council members, for your time.
Thank you, Mario. Next candidate, Mike Tutt. Please come forward, Mike.
Morning, Mike. This is ready to go. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Tutt. I am a fifth-generation Brantfordian. My great-grandfather, James Tutt, served on the Brantford Town Council in the 1860s. He operated a planing mill that employed 65 people. It was located at the foot of Charlotte Street and Colburn, facing the canal. My grandfather, Macintosh Tutt, started his career as a lawyer in partnership with W. Ross McDonald. He later became the manager of the Canada Permanent Bank here on Market Street. Over the next 30 years, Monday through Friday, he would pick up the mail for the bank from this very building. It would be an honor for me to serve the citizens of Brantford from this new city hall. My vision for Brantford is that of a prosperous and vital city, one steeped in the arts and rich in culture. I had my first art exhibit in 1976 at the Carnegie Library building, and then attended and received my diploma from the Ontario College of Art and Design in Toronto. This allowed me to pursue a career in the arts that has spanned decades. Upon my return to Brantford, I opened my first business, the Tutt Gallery, at 44 George Street in the downtown. This set the tone for the next several years for me, both as a small business owner, as an advocate for the arts in Brantford. In 1993, I started the Casino for ICOM committee, following the collapse of the original plan for that building. In the 1997 municipal election, I was chairman of the Yes Casino Committee. The Yes Committee's successful campaign was responsible for the casino coming to Brantford, thus creating 1,100 jobs and providing the funding that brought Laurier University to the downtown. With the casino's ongoing success and the expansion of Laurier, I see an opportunity for increasing revenues to the city by simply moving the casino to the 403 and Garden Ave area. This would improve accessibility to the casino and open the surrounding area up to a myriad of potential developments. Another exciting possibility arises from this scenario. I see an international art center rising out of the old ICOM building that would be dedicated to the founding member of the Group of Seven and native of Brantford, Lauren Harris. This would complement Laurier much better than the casino. Traffic and congestion have been an issue here in Ward 1 for years and would be a priority to solve with council and my ward mate Jan Vanderstelt. The current infrastructure is woefully inadequate to accommodate the current and future traffic loads. With predicted growth in population of Brantford over the next 30 years, the area surrounding the Civic Center could be developed into residential high-rises, facilitating a thriving community along the river. As well, I would like to see all future residential development commit 20% of space to low-income affordable housing. I have had an active interest in local politics for over 30 years, running twice in Ward 1 and working tirelessly on campaigns of others. I'm sure you all know my interest has always come from a desire to see our city move forward. I want it even more so in our post-pandemic world. When you vote for me, I will contribute to the civility, respect, and cooperation of City Council. Together, we can accomplish great things. And if elected, I'd like to start a tradition of bringing in a historical artifact to meetings. And today I've got Edmund Cockshutt's hymnary that was given to him in 1934 by Zion Church, chairman of the board, C. Moyer, when he donated money to the repairs of Zion Church. And this was Edmund Cockshutt that also donated Glenhurst to the city. On the way to the meeting today, randomly, my neighbor gave me the souvenir program. Didn't even know I was coming here to the city hall to do this. And this is from 1939. And it shows all the businesses that contributed to King George and Queen Elizabeth's visit to Brantford in 1939. Thank you very much for this time. And I would really appreciate your vote and I want to help Brantford move forward. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Mike. So move on now to the 15th candidate, and that's Randy Shellis. Randy, come forward, please. Morning, Randy. Floor is yours.
Oh, I'll take my mask off. Okay, make sure I've got things in the right order here. Boy, oh boy. My name is Randy Shellis, Mr. Mayor and councilors. First, I'd like to acknowledge Crystal, my former tenant, and she's been cleaning tables here. We're still good friends. I live in Ward 1 and Daubeny Road area. I'm an industrial electrician, an electronics technician, and an affordable landlord, and lately marketing as owner of Eagle Supreme Canada. I've made my living working mostly as a shift electrician in heavy industry. Being retired, things are leaner, but I'm not struggling as much as most people. Growing up, I was born and went to kindergarten in Brantford and grew up in Burford, learning how to raise crops and livestock for our family of 8 on our small farm. I could drive a tractor well and work better than some men. So as a kid, I found a job from age 14, apart from working at home. My family is myself, my wife Lori, our teens Ryan and Haley, Aunt Donna. My 3 adult children have jobs in nursing, education, and business. I'm also grateful to have 2 beautiful granddaughters, excuse me. And yeah, I just had a picture of the school I went to. What else? My resume is here and it's online, and I've lost it because I have too many papers. But I'm very technical. I have 9 big companies that I've been an industrial electrician for, and a variety of other surfaces. I've condensed my resume. There's probably 9 other positions on there that I could put, but I've just shortened it for brevity. Above and beyond my work history, I've used my good jobs to provide affordable rents for 31 years over a maximum of 8 duplexes, now down to 3 duplexes. My rents today are 700, 800, 750, and 750. And although I purchased when prices were considerably lower, and I'm not complaining even though I pay all the bills. So I watched yesterday the Social Services Committee between Brantford and Brant and approving the 3rd quarterly housing report. I've always known that we own thousands of rentals, and this committee would be a useful place for me. My 3 reference letters I have out here, and I put them in with my package. It's there from David Newman in 1990 when I wrote an economic model based upon electrical math with an imaginary electronic circuit called TROPSIF. I understand a little about higher economics from my own perspective. I want to emphasize that the model was an imaginary analogy to electrical power factors based upon the way political systems run, communist, democratic, corporate, and with respect to the timing of cash flows. So nothing fancy, just straight up electrical math. Lastly, in my covering letter to the councillors and the mayor, I mentioned that I only intend to hold the Ward 1 council position for this term and not to run again. I live in Ward 1, and I believe that to ensure a more fair election in 2022, I think we can do that in such a way that I would just rescind myself from being elected again. I also pledge that I don't carry an agenda, having last run in 2014, getting 600 votes. Social services in downtown. Like many of us, I've also grieved for close lost friends and even neighbors in the core culture that lacks the survival tools that people need to get by. I feel sad a lot of the time, particularly for a pair of close friends, a mom and a dad with 2 little girls that passed away as part of this culture. I feel like I failed my friends. So if I'm able to get involved in helping our issues in the core and throughout our area with addiction treatment and homelessness, it is because I'm trying to make amends for my friends and being unable to help them. These days, I believe in harm reduction as opposed to total abstinence. With that, I would like to close my speech and thank all of you for your service to the city of Brantford.
Well, thank you very much, Randy. Our next candidate is John Starkey. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Oops. Can we restart that? That was not my original good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council. There's a cartoon where a rundown nag destined for the glue factory hears the trumpet fanfare and starter's bell and is a racehorse once again, and here I am. Your wall of recognition credits me with 19 years on council, elected 5 times to represent Ward 1, once in Ward 5. I pioneered a civic affairs column in the Brantford Expositor. I've earned some kudos. I helped write a book about Brantford and chaired the Brantford Bicentennial Commission that produced another. I first ran in 1976, not always winning, but never being voted out of office. In my bid for mayor, I did pretty good. Looking for experience? I have 3 decades of municipal corporate memory. I have knowledge and know-how to bring to Rick Weaver's committee duties, and I'm making good use of your Zoom meeting library. West Brant is where I grew up. It's changing before our eyes, and I hope to work with Jan van der Stelt in delivering the services the growing community needs. In the 70s, we protected the floodplain areas to the level of the 100-year regional storm. The Bronte Creek flood shattered that standard. We're not immune to natural disasters. In 1986, Brantford experienced the biggest landslide in Ontario's history. Extreme weather makes not just the river, but creeks, wetlands, and storm sewers threats to life and property. We need to make our infrastructure resilient to climate cycles. Making a better Brantford is the ultimate test for council. Beyond sewers and sidewalks, parks and policing, it's the pursuit of continuous improvement. A history of achievements made in Brantford challenge us to be as inventive today. Building a transportation supply chain, manufacturing prowess, well-paid employment, affordable housing, pioneering new technology, local firsts in public health, community services, and the arts, and the Brantford model for post-secondary education. Beginning with the 1994 election, I helped make a local university a topic of debate. Fate nurtured that seed. Laurier Brantford opened in 1999. The current CAO's credentials encourage me that, like the region and cities of KW, Brantford should claim a permanent seat on Laurier's Board of Governors. We haven't done everything right. Projected growth got Brantford this building. A sister post office was built in another city predicted to match our growth, Vancouver. Having downtown social problems at the front door might even inspire solutions. A city with so many firsts can continue to innovate to meet the challenges, but the answer hasn't been found in mega projects. Mohawk Greenwich taught us the costs of cleaning up a demolition site. We ignored that lesson on Colburn Street, paying an $8 million penalty and destroying affordable housing in the process. They say there's a curse. The Heart of Victoria Park is proof of the pride past generations took in Brantford's origins. Joseph Brant is why Brantford is here. Where was the desire for reconciliation when 6 nations proposed operating the museum space in Harmony Square that council gave to Bell Canada instead? And Bell is long gone. I thank Councillor Wall for urging the Art Stanbridge walkway sign return to Colburn Street. Seatmates on council, Art and I were opponents about downtown. I was a 20-something kid opposed to Eaton Mall and closing Market Street, and what did I know? Art actually moved to have me banned from in-camera downtown discussions. It's wrong to begrudge those who honestly disagree. It's how we learn, by having our beliefs challenged. which is why I brought forward the resolution to create the Art Stanbridge Walkway to honor his commitment and efforts. Acknowledgement is important. John Sless recognized the hard work of Doug Snooks. Dan McCreary spotlighted the plight of sales clerks on Boxing Day. I moved to create the office of Lord Mayor for Charlie Ward, a title later conferred on Walter Gretzky. Maybe during the Platinum Jubilee, we can recognize 70 citizens who stood out during the Queen's reign. Thanks for listening to this audition or job interview, but it isn't right. If an MP dies, a committee doesn't choose the replacement. There's a by-election. If that's too expensive, the least undemocratic solution is to follow established practice and appoint Michael Sullivan. In living memory, today's process was only used to fill a council vacancy when there was no third place candidate because the incumbent had been acclaimed, not elected. Relying on a 5-minute presentation is like speed dating. I'm probably not your perfect match because I would have supported Michael Sullivan. To be fair to those who have recently sought election, I will not be running for ward councillor in 2022. Thanks again, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, John. Brought back some memories. Next candidate, Catherine Grieve. Go on, Catherine.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. My name is Kathy Grieve, and I am very excited to be here today. I have a passion in me to do this job. Please do not rule me out as I have never been on council. I know Brantford and love this city. I can do this job. I have reached out to a few councillors to get a better understanding of what is involved in being a representative of Ward 1. Just doing a little homework. I would enjoy working with Mr. Vanderstelt in Ward 1, understanding their uniqueness and their needs. My great-grandparents and grandparents immigrated to Brantford from Northern Ireland. They did not know anyone here, but soon made it their home. My great-grandfather looked after all the parks in Brantford. He loved his job. My grandmother was the cook at the Scarf Estate. She shared some amusing stories with us. My dad was the chief surveyor for Brantford. I am truly a Brantford girl at heart. Being an artist, I am on a committee headed by Mr. Chuck Beach. I have designed a map for the new forest. Through the years, I have been on many church committees and had great success in raising money for our church. I have lots of ideas. I am a proud member of the Guild in Brantford. We need a new home. We have outgrown our little cottage. It would be wonderful if we had a larger venue for all the talented artists in our city. I was self-employed and owned my own beauty shop for years. I was very committed to my clients. Many are still my best friends. As an art teacher under contract at the Beckett Center for 40 years, I have learned how the city business functions. I have had the exposure to the needs of the seniors in our city. I always had a dream of being a minister, so I self-educated online and attained by certification. That shows that being a senior is never too late to have goals, to learn, and make a difference. Over the years, I have done lots of volunteer work, some at church, some at St. Joseph Life Care, still very involved with doing volunteer work at the Dunsas Valley School of Arts. My focus will be on the homeless. Our family recently lost one of our own to a downtown occurrence, so I am passionate to find solutions. I know that there is a lot being done, as Big Smoke is donating $1 for every burger sold to the food bank. What a great idea. The city task force has been a godsend. Also, I would focus on the seniors and needs and issues of Ward 1 constituents. If you give me the chance to be counselor in Ward 1, I can tell you that I will put the same amount of hard work and passion into the job that I have demonstrated during my lifetime. But recently, when I received my certification as a minister, I am very proud of what I do and who I am. And I am proud to live here. I am proud to be here right now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Our next candidate is Erica James. Good morning, Erica.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I would like to take my remarks through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank council for the opportunity to speak to you all today. I also like to thank city staff for all the hard work they have done to make the process of filling Ward 1 vacancies smooth and seamless. So thank you all. And finally, I'd like to thank all the candidates who have the courage to step forward to serve. Now, I'll start with a very important point Councillor Vanderstel made at the October 26th City Council meeting. And I'll paraphrase. He asked, how representative is our City Council of our community? The answer to that question is quite obvious. It's not. One woman on council and no one from the LGBTQ2S+ community or anyone of color. Now, I can't check off all three of those boxes, but I do check off two of them. So I believe representation does matter. There's power in diversity. There's a strength when you bring something new, different to the table. Someone like myself who would bring a very unique perspective to City Council, and I would be a great asset to council. Also at the very same time, the very same meeting, Councillors Sless and Martin mentioned how it would be important to appoint someone with council experience. I'll respectfully disagree. And here's why. Experience doesn't guarantee success. Experience can come with some baggage, set ways of doing things, and biases. I would bring a fresh, unbiased, clean slate to council. I also have a fairly good understanding of how council works from being on various boards, committees, and from watching many city council meetings either in person or on TV. In fact, my PVR is set to record them all. Now, I'm not saying that I know everything, but what I can tell you is this. I'm prepared to work 40+ hours starting next week to learn what I don't know so I can be even more prepared for when I'm officially appointed on the 21st. I will spend hours meeting with and listening to the concerns and needs of Ward 1 residents as well as other residents of Brantford. It truly would be an honor to work with and be mentored by you all. I believe there are a few important skills, attributes that a counselor should have. The ability to listen, learn, lead, and inspire, as well as have a desire, passion to serve and help others, which I have. I also understand that you can't always get everything you want and know that an integral part of being a team player is the ability to compromise. I love the city of Brantford and will always put great effort and energy into building up this community and do so with great enthusiasm. Now, a little bit about myself. I've been a resident of Brantford for 24 years and was co-owner of a few local small businesses for the past 20, where we sponsor many local sports teams and supported local charities. I co-founded our local PFLAG chapter and co-organized Brantford's first ever Transgender Awareness Week in 2017, where I organized the first ever transgender flag raising at City Hall. I was proud to have Rick Weaver bring forth a proclamation to the City Council that I wrote on behalf of the transgender community. Thank you, Rick, if you're watching, for your tireless work for the City of Brantford. You are an amazing counselor and will be missed. Currently, I am on the executive of the Brantford Station Neighborhood Association, the Neighborhood Alliance of Brantford, and participate within the Homeville Neighborhood Association. I also have one of the most diverse lived experience of any of the 21 candidates presenting today. These last 7 years have been an incredible journey as I have truly stepped into who I was supposed to be all along. Since becoming my true authentic self, I can easily relate to all walks of life. I'm able to establish rapport and connect with others easily. I'm a very friendly and approachable individual and treat others with courtesy and respect. I'll also consider myself a people person who can get along well with others. So in conclusion, the representation does matter. Diversity and inclusion does matter. And I possess the skills, attributes, and the time required to fulfill the duties of Brantford City Councilor. I would be a great choice to fill this vacancy. So today, you all have a great opportunity to make a statement in a very public forum that the City of Brantford is an even more open, accepting, and inclusive community. This can be accomplished by having our City Council reflect some of the diversity that we have in this city by appointing me, Erica James, to council. So let's do something today that has never been done in the province of Ontario. Thank you for your time, Mr. Mayor and councillors, and I greatly appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So our next candidate is Sherry Licorice. And Sherry, if you please come forward. Good morning, Sherry.
Morning. Sagal, morning, councillors, Mayor Davis. I'm Sherry Lickers. I stand in front of you. I thought I'd be standing, so I'm sitting in front of you. I'm applying for the position of the Ward 1 councillor. First, I want to say that I'm a single mom of 3 adult sons and 1 grandson. I have lived my whole life here in Brantford. I've lived in the Ward 1 area for the last 10 years. I felt the need to apply for this position, mostly because I'm a strong Indigenous woman, and I think Brantford needs more women on city council and with some diversity. With everything that has happened in the past, I can help you bring that Indigenous perspective to the council, and I feel lots of cities need this. Being Brantford, being on the border of the largest reserve in Ontario, it's time for the city to start working on truth and reconciliation. I tried to find out if any city councilor had ever had, if city council had ever had an Indigenous person on city council, and I couldn't find anything, so the time is now. I'm also here to represent all Brantford citizens with a good mind. There are many reasons to join council, and I believe that I can make things happen, and I can get things done. I'm very passionate about the homeless and the drug and the violence in the city and getting the downtown back to the vibrant place it used to be. I've been a part of many sports organizations in Brantford over the years. I've supported a lot of local fundraising for youth and elders. I've spent many years working in a supervisor position for the Six Nations Council and have attended many meetings during that time, so I'm well aware of how council proceedings work. I don't have a business background, but I come from a field of helping people. I've had many positions in the childcare field, been a part of many communities in the province. I can bring some of that knowledge I learned to council. I'm eager to learn new things to get this city to a place that people want to visit. I want to thank you for letting me speak today, and if chosen, I'll be ready to jump in where needed and for the rest of this term. Now, thank you, Sherry Lickers.
Thank you, Sherry. So our next candidate is Debbie Dignan Rumble. Debbie, please come forward. Morning, Debbie.
Good morning, Mayor, councillors, and fellow candidates. I would like to take a moment to wish Rick Weaver good health and good luck. As many of you know, and for those of you who don't, I was elected councillor for Ward 3 for the 2010-2014 term and subsequently came third when running again for re-election in 2014. I wholeheartedly believe that this position should be appointed to the next candidate who ran and came third for Ward 1, which was Mike Sullivan. In the past few vacancies on council, the person who placed third in the previous election was rightfully appointed to fill that vacancy. However, this council has chosen to go a different route, one that was used decades ago. And it is for that reason that I decided to come out of retirement and seek the appointment for Ward 1 vacancy on council. Over the years, I have been asked on a consistent basis to seek a seat on council so that I could continue to help those in our community. When people saw that I put my name forward, I was inundated with calls and emails asking how they can help and where do they sign up. Comments made at the October 26th meeting were troublesome to myself and others as taxpayers in this community. The thought of the backroom politics being at play and a pre-selection of someone with previous council experience, whether this was true or false, is concerning and which has led, in my opinion, to many qualified persons putting their name forward to fill the vacancy in Ward 1, myself included. At that meeting, it was mentioned that the person who came in third place of an election wasn't the choice of constituents. However, many of you have indeed come in third place or less during your political careers, myself included. It does not mean that the person is less suitable to be on this council. Council's discussion around the motion that had stated you wanted someone with previous council experience. And as you can see by my resume, I have that and then some. While on council, I sat on 17 to 21 boards, committees, and task force each year for a total of 31 over the 4 years. My attendance was near perfect and I actively participated on all, taking my share of jobs and responsibilities along with staff and volunteers. Some of those committees were the Walk of Fame, the Children's Memorial Garden, the Wayne Gretzky Opening, the Community Safety and Crime Prevention, Rick Hansen Relay, and our beloved Canada Day celebrations. I have the most recent experience of being on council, and councilors should note that during my time on council, my record of achievements and ability to work as a member of a team speaks for itself, including the fact that no claims of harassment or code of conduct complaints were ever made of myself. I was truthful, respectful with other members of council, staff, constituents, and compliant to the municipal bylaws, policies, and procedures, and will continue if approved for this vacancy. A recent Exposer article has shown that Brantford ranks 29 out of 32 municipalities on the Municipality Democracy Index, lacking in many areas, including diversity, voter turnout, and gender balance. This sentiment had been echoed by councillors when deciding how best to fill this vacancy in Ward 1. I offer diversity for this council as shown by my resume. And for those that know me personally, I am a professional. I am a volunteer in the community. I'm a proud citizen of Brantford. I am a mother and I am a woman. When my daughter looked at my resume, she thought it was cute that I didn't have to put the year I graduated from college because it was a long time ago. She's right, it was. But I'm still proud to have graduated in recreation. My career was focused on therapeutic recreation. However, nothing would give me more pleasure than to use my skills toward the Southwest Community Center and Park to help carry on and complete Councillor Weaver's dream and hard work that has gone towards the complex to the end of this term. Ward 1 is a prosperous and diverse and ever-changing expanding community that deserves a representative who will assist them with their day-to-day concerns and continue to advocate for their needs. I am just that person to help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Debbie. We'll now move on to the final candidate, who is Michael Sullivan. And Michael, I believe, is joining us virtually. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mayor Davis and distinguished councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the vacancy of the Ward 1 councillor. My name is Michael Sullivan, and I was the runner-up in the 2018 election, and I have a diverse background of experiences. These experiences include being an operations manager in the medical field, a liaison for Canada Post, supply chain management and logistics, budgets, forecasting, financial audits, as well as environmental related public service. I believe that these experiences make myself an ideal candidate to fill the Ward 1 vacancy. Every position I have held in the past has been met with quick success and promotion. My determination to quickly learn what the expectation is and being intentional in meeting that expectation, in most cases exceeding it, has led to these successes. I'd put the same determination into serving the people of Brantford. All of my life, I've had a desire to serve others and to do it to my maximum ability. In the 14 years that I have lived here in Brantford, I have logged hundreds of hours of volunteer work within the city, from helping with the Canada Day cleanup for Councillor Antosky, to assisting church food banks, media presentations, and to running a kids club program for those kids less unfortunate. I would like to make it clear, though, I do not want to give a false impression, as I know this is not about me. This is about the residents of Ward 1, the city of Brantford, and to be a support to the council. I know Councillor Vanderstelt has been carrying a lot over the last 6 months without a ward mate. He deserves a compatible person to work with him in the ward. Given my experiences and being a resident of Ward 1, I believe I can be the right fit for that position. As you are all aware, I have not exactly agreed with the process the council has chosen to fill this vacancy. So I decided to try and get a picture of how the residents felt towards it. Through an online petition, which over 400 people signed, which was later narrowed down to 278 current residents of Brantford, who expressed their disagreements with this process. I have included the spreadsheet for your review, along with another sheet that shows some of the resident feedback. Back in October 26th at the council meeting, when this process was determined, it was mentioned that the issues of the 2018 election are no longer prevalent or of much concern now that we're in 2021 with new issues. This stirred something up inside of me. So I decided to reach out to the ward constituents through social media, phone conversations, and through a personal visit. What I discovered was not all that surprising to me. Here are 10 of the things that they had expressed concerns about in no particular order. Vehicular speeding on residential streets, no efficient way east from West Brant, affordable housing, increasing crime, not feeling safe to walk the streets at night, no amenities, homelessness, drug crisis with no detox center, continually increasing taxes, no public high school, poor transit system. These issues are very much the same as in 2018, yet have intensified. Knowing this would be considered a soft petition or survey being done mostly online, I decided to reconnect with the residents of Ward 1 by performing a door-to-door petition, practicing safe communication through mask use and social distancing, of course. Unfortunately, shortly after I started, I contracted a non-COVID related infection. Once I had recovered, I did not believe it would be responsible of me to continue with the door-to-door procedure. However, I did have a couple of calls where people authorized me to add their names to the list and people who come to my door to sign it as a desire of theirs. In the end, we ended up with 71 signatures from roughly about 6 small streets. I believe that if I had more time and had gotten to the whole ward, the residents would have made it very clear that they want me to be their appointed Ward 1 councillor. As Albert Einstein said, strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. And ultimately is my hope that you can see the value that I can bring to council, the Ward 1 residents, and the people of Brantford. I ask you to reflect on what has been brought forth and honor the expressed voices of the Ward 1 constituents and point myself to that councillor position. I do thank you for your time, and I do appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Michael. So that now completes the candidate presentation portion. But before we move into the voting, I did want to say that very sincerely, I wanted to thank everyone who's attended personally and who also did this virtually and took the time to submit the paperwork. And it was pretty rigorous and to go through the selection process. Appreciate that very much. We're stronger the number of people that are interested in serving our community. And actually, I got to say this, I really wasn't looking forward to this morning, but having gone through this and listened to all of you and your passionate commitment to our city and wanting to serve our city was actually kind of uplifting. and it was very interesting. And I thank you again for coming and telling us about yourselves and your vision and passion for our city. So with that, we'll move into item 5.1, which is the process to actually fill the vacancy. And we have a resolution. We can have that. As you can see, there is a blank, but that we would about to fill in. But if I can have a mover and seconder then to get this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Vanderstelt, seconded by Councillor Sluss. So before we start the voting process, I did want to just take a moment to remind members of the voting process. It has changed slightly. And first of all, it is that we will vote openly. And we will vote for one candidate only. And if on the first vote, a candidate receives greater than 50% of the vote from the members of council present up here, then that person will fill the vacancy. If on the first vote, no candidate receives greater than 50% of the votes from the members present, then the candidate who received the fewest number of votes and the candidates with 0 votes will be removed for the next round of voting. Another vote will then be taken with the remaining candidates, and the process will continue until a candidate receives at least 50% of the votes from members of council present. Should a tie occur with the final 2 candidates, the clerk would then draw a name from a hat. And then once a candidate receives a majority vote, this motion that you just saw is complete because the gap or blank is then filled in. So, Madam Clerk, let's proceed to take the vote. The open. Yes.
Thank you. With the indulgence of council, can I just ask for 20 more seconds for me to finish my tabulations, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to rush. Councillor Antosky, we can take 5 minutes. Okay, all right. Madam Clerk, let's proceed.
Through to the counselor, so we'll scroll for the names. You are to select one.
Yeah, you scroll through and find the one that you just touched that.
First round for the appointment voting is as follows: Mayor Davis, Mark Littell, Councillor Vanderstelt, Rose Sicoli, Councillor Utley, Gino Caputo, Councillor Sless, Rose Sicoli, Councillor Martin, Mark Littell, Councillor Antosky, Rose Sicoli, Councillor Van Tilburg, Michael Sullivan. With that vote, you do have a multiple selection of the lowest candidates. Just identifying that to the chairs, we do not have a procedure for that process when the multiple lowest occurs.
Right. Because what we have is we have 2 that received 1 vote, and that was Gino Caputo and Mr. Sullivan. So members, our rules that were prepared on October 26th didn't really specifically prepare for that. I suggest what we do is we have a runoff vote with the 2. And the runoff vote would be clearly a majority, and that person, whoever receives the majority, would then be included in the second round. So that's what I'm going to propose. And what that means, I know Councilor Martin, you're looking at me. What it means is we have two candidates who've tied, right? And so you either move them both up into the next round, or they both come out, or you find a way of selecting one of the two. So I'm suggesting we have a sort of a sub-off runoff vote, determine which of the two would then move to the next level. Okay. So unless there's an objection to that, you need time to prepare for that, Madam Clerk? Okay. So can you give us that voting option?
So through to the counselors, because we're in the process of the appointment vote, we'll need to do the runoff manually. So when I call your name, I'll need your choice for either Gino Caputo or Michael Sullivan, please. I'm going to commence with Ward 1, starting with Councillor Vanderstelt.
Madam Clerk, Gino Caputo, please.
Thank you, Gino. Councillor Sless.
Sullivan.
Councillor Utley.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Certainly. So this is for you had a tie for one vote for each of the two candidates, Gino Caputo and Michael Sullivan. The runoff vote will be then putting who receives the majority into the next subsequent appointment voting process.
Gino Caputo.
Thank you, noting Gino. Councillor Martin.
Gino.
Councillor Antosky.
Sullivan.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Michael Sullivan.
Mayor Davis.
Sullivan.
Michael Sullivan is the successful candidate for the runoff vote and will be included in your subsequent voting for the appointment.
All right, so let's move now that we have the slate determined. If we could move then to the second round, since we did not have a candidate who received a majority in the first round.
The second round of the appointment vote is as follows. Mayor Davis, Rose Sokoli, Councillor Vanderstelt, Rose Sokoli, Councillor Utley, Rose Sokoli, Councillor Sless, Rose Sokoli, Councillor Martin, Mark Littell, Councillor Antosky, Rose Sokoli, Councillor Van Tilburg, Michael Sullivan. The majority has been received for Rose Sokoli, thereby filling the vacancy. All right.
Right, well, congratulations, Rose. So we'll now move to actually bylaw that decision. And the candidate Rose will actually be sworn in at the council meeting on December 21st. So let's move to pass the requisite bylaw. And I need Madam Clerk, if you could share what that is. So I need a mover and seconder for the motion for first and second reading of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Utley and seconded by Councillor Vanderstelt. You're the seconder. Actually, maybe it's more appropriate you be the mover. Let's leave you as the mover, and Councillor Utley, you'll be the seconder. So if you could please read that.
That leave be given to the mover and seconder to introduce the following bylaws for first and second reading. 2021 bylaw to appoint a member to fill the vacant Ward 1 councillor position, Special City Council, December 11th, 2021. 2021 bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford with respect to the special meeting held on December 11th, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderstelt. Madam Clerk, if we please take the vote on that.
The first and second reading of the bylaws is carried on a recorded vote of 7-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, Martin, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis.
All right. If I can get a mover and seconder then for third and final reading of that bylaw. So it's moved by Councillor Sless, seconded by Councillor Utley. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
The third and final reading of the bylaws carried on a recorded vote of 7-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Vanderstel, Utley, Sless, Martin, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Mayor Davis.
All right, our business this morning has been completed and this meeting is adjourned and we'll reconvene this Tuesday as Committee of the Whole Planning and then in a week and a half, the council meeting for December.